Thank you for joining us. My name is Andrew Burt. I am CEO of Luminos.ai, and I am joined by
Sean McGregor, founder, AI Incident Database.
And this is episode 3 of Inside the Incident. For those who are new to the segment, every Inside the Incident, Sean and I pick one AI incident. We dive deep into what it is, why it happened, and most importantly, what we can learn from it so it does not happen again. And so today, there's so many different AI incidents out there, but today we're going to put together different pieces of the puzzle, and we're going to talk about that. So Sean, over to you. Tell us what we're able to piece together from all the information we have.
And let me tell you, it is a masterpiece. We have incident, So we have incident 1324, Pieces Technologies, clinical AI system allegedly marketed with misleading performance claims. And what we have here, this is a Texas-based company that put out a statement that their technology was capable of a 1 in 100,000 hallucination rate, which is very important. And when you're in the medical practice, because a hallucination with respect to, what disease a person has can actually lead to that person getting killed. It's a very high stakes scenario with which to bring generative AI, and that's the technology that they were using and deploying in their systems. You might have guessed what happened here. They actually likely did not actually hit a 1 in 100,000 hallucination rate. It's actually extremely unlikely because that would be incredible. They wouldn't be a startup that raised $100 million. They'd be a startup that raised $10 billion because that just was not actually in the cards for most companies at that point with generative AI. And that was really the problem. The attorney general came in and said that you can't actually say that you have a 1 in 100,000 performance, at least without doing a collection of things that they agreed to. What are those things, Andrew?
So the very important part of this is that, like Sean said, we had the state of Texas go after Pieces Technology. I should also say everything we're saying right now is based on public information. We don't actually have any inside information. So everything we're saying is an opinion and a guess and not necessarily a fact. So basically, you have the state of Texas under the auspices of the Attorney General come in, and they have this complaint very quickly becomes settled, I think just a few months. And as part of the settlement, Pieces Technology is under two pretty burdensome requirements. And so the first is marketing and advertising disclosures. Basically, every single thing they disclose or market or advertise about the product needs to be backed up by many, many, many different sorts of evidence and standards, and basically the sharing of information that is really not standard when you're doing marketing and you're making big, sexy claims about AI, unless they have a third party or independent verification that everything they're saying is correct. So again, this is pretty burdensome. If you are a startup, if you're an AI company, every single thing you say publicly, you need to really, really, really show all the evidence for, or you need to go get someone else to come in and prove that you're right. And then that's the marketing and advertising. And then to actual consumers of the product, Pieces Technology needs to be very, very comprehensive about all the potential harms that could happen. And so all of these things are best practices. But what the state of Texas is basically doing with Pieces Technology is saying, okay, if you are going to do it at this level as a normal company, if you're Pieces, you need to go 100x in terms of how thorough you are at disclosing harms.
Andrew, this happened with a Texas company as the Texas Attorney General. Me as a technologist not living in Texas, shipping technologies, do I need to worry about the Texas Attorney General and all 49 other Attorney Generals at this point? Like, do all these old laws apply to me? I'm a fragile technologist that does not want these like old rules to be applied. We are reinventing the world.
Yes. The answer is yes. Just because a lot of AI is new does not mean the legal environment it operates in is new. So there are a lot of old laws. They all apply to AI. And I think this case, and one of the reasons, Sean, why I really wanted to talk about it is because I think this flew under the radar. Most folks in the AI governance world didn't actually know that it took place. And it's a lesson that if you're worried about AI regulatory environments, if you're worried about AI liability, you need to pay attention to not just national standards in the US or the EU, and not just state laws, but you also need to be thinking about consumer protection departments and states and state attorney generals. And so there are all sorts of ways that AI, and especially AI agents, which we talked about in our last episode, can violate existing laws.
Oh, that's it. I'm seasteading. I'm moving offshore.
Sean, let's save seasteading for an entirely new episode where we can be even more opinionated.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right, so Sean, let's play a game here. the game I'd like to play is who's to blame. And so you as a data scientist and me as a lawyer and AI governance person, let's play the blame game. So Pieces Technology got into a lot of trouble for saying things about its AI that the state of Texas basically said is not true. So who is to blame for this legal action and the settlement if you are within the company at Pieces Technology? Who's to blame?
Okay, so I would make an argument that is the technologist to blame, that the best defense for any kind of a misrepresentation case, I would believe, is, hey, it's actually true. Here's the science, here's the notes, here's the lab notebook. This is actually what happened. Evidently, they gave the headline number and probably didn't have as many of the notes of saying, like, what's informing that number? How should you interpret it? How should you act on it? So you could have had a situation where someone sees this hallucination rate and they think that globally applies to all clinical practices, that it's always going to perform at a 1 per 100,000 query level, and that's just not going to be the case. There's going to be some practices that maybe their system doesn't perform as well for pediatrics or oncology. Who knows? Medicine is a really big space, and that failure rate is maybe at best an average, and at worst is downright misleading in nature.
All right, so I disagree. I would say that who's to blame? The answer in our who's to blame game, I would actually say the AI governance, the legal folks, the privacy folks, whoever it is in that organization responsible for making sure the company doesn't get in trouble. And I would actually say the main takeaway here, again, Sean and I don't actually know anything about what happened internal to the company or related to the settlement that's not public. But typically, in my experience, what happens when there's some type of legal action is a company gets in trouble, and then one set of lawyers talks to the other set of lawyers, and they say, okay, this is bad. What did you do to stop it? And so the first thing you really need to do is demonstrate good faith. You need to show that here are all of the things we've done to make sure anything bad does not happen. And so that usually looks like a long round of testing. It usually looks like a lot of the data that Sean said. And then the most critical part of that is clear documentation that says, here's why we couldn't do any better. Here's why every single one of our claims is reasonable. Here are the current standards out there. Here's why we're doing our best to meet them. And so the way that this settlement took place, how quickly it took place, because from the actual notice of the action from the state of Texas to the actual settlement was very, very quick. And so my guess, again, not public information, only public information. My guess is what happened was there was this issue and there wasn't a lot to fall back on. And so I think if you are an organization, you're deploying AI, you're selling AI, you're making very bold statements, obviously you want to get the science right. You want to get the technology right. You want to make sure it's performing as much as it can, but there are always risks in probabilistic systems. There is a 100% probability that they will be wrong sometimes. And so what you need to think about is when the system is wrong, what can you do to minimize the harm? And because some harm is going to occur when it is wrong, what can you do to demonstrate all of the things you did to try to reduce that harm when it does occur?
So it's what you're saying, Andrew, is somewhat persuasive, but I think I would say either on the legal side of things, the GRC side of things, you could have solved it. On the technical side, you could have solved it. But ideally, probably these two parts working in tandem towards a better information, better package, better communicated, a better science as brought to the customer, where all the liner notes on that conform to reality and are well documented. But is that fair?
I think, yes. To sum up, I think the data scientists and the legal GRC governance people, they're all pieces of the same pie. And they needed to be brought together. I said that was going to be the last pun. I apologize deeply.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
Sly puns here. I'm getting them under the radar. But yes, I honestly, okay, so this is my conclusion. Sean, you've convinced me. I think I've convinced you. Everyone is to blame. So when there's an AI incident, everyone is to blame. And even though that is a joke, it's actually not a joke in the sense that when companies deploy AI, one of the big issues is that everyone's involved. So when AI does something well, everybody takes credit because you have IT, data science, you have business units, you have lawyers, everyone is involved. And so it means when there's an incident, when something goes bad, everyone is involved as well. And so I think the spirit of Inside the Incident, the spirit of both what Sean and I do outside of this is how can we connect technical folks and governance folks and make sure they're aligned. And so I would venture that the main problem here is one of misalignment. And so everyone is to blame.
Everyone's to blame. Everyone could have caused it. And the key as an organization to moving past that is to not blame anyone. Is to have a sense of you are building a culture of safety, that you can share these things and express these concerns. And everyone's to blame. No one's to blame. It all gets mixed together.
That sounds exactly right. For everyone who joined us today, thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for more. And I will say this is our third episode. We'll be having many more. And so please comment if you're looking at this on LinkedIn, or reach out to us. If you are not, we want to know what you want us to talk about. We want to know if there are any incidents that excite you or that you want to learn from.
Yeah, thank you. And you can learn more about incidents at incidentdatabase.ai. You can also report incidents there if you're aware of incidents that have not made its way to the database. So let's build that more fulsome picture into what is happening in the world with AI so we can all learn from it.